If you want to know all about Francine Smith's childhood, her free-loving rebellious years, and eventually becoming the most hardcore mum of cartoon time, then stick around to the end of this video. This is the complete timeline of Francine Smith.
Give me some of that Franny! Give me some of that Franny!
Oh, and if you want to see a video on Hayley Smith, then quickly tap that like and subscribe button for the algorithm. Otherwise, I don't know if you really do like the video, and also YouTube will not push it. So thank you, and let's get on with the video. Francine's early years. Francine was born into a wealthy family, not that it mattered as her parents elected to leave her behind at an airport rather than give up their first-class plane tickets. So after being left at the airport, Francine spent her early years living in an orphanage. And as you can probably expect, the experience wasn't an ideal one, only topped off by having nuns using corporal punishment to force left-handed Francine into a right-hander. Luckily, Francine's plight caught the attention of Mama and Baba Ling. And although they had to wait for the price of adoption to be lowered, they eventually welcomed 7-year-old Francine into their family with open arms officially. With this, Francine was also introduced to her newly adopted sister, Gwen. She even became fluent in Chinese and therefore fully integrated into their lives and culture.
你知道 Stan ใช่吗?
What'd you say? You just said my name. You tried to bury it in your China talk, but I heard it.
However, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows in the Ling household. An accident involving a teenage Francine resulted in the destruction of their high school. And desperate to protect her sister, Gwen took the blame, leaving a guilty Francine forever in her sister's debt. After this, Francine attended college, where she appeared to have fallen out with her roommate, and this argument must have been a pretty bad one, as she casually admitted to killing her.
Yeah, I killed my college roommate. I can't believe you didn't know that. I stabbed her.
Franny is definitely not as innocent as she looks. After college, she briefly embarked on an acting career, scoring a role in the television show Scarecrow and Mrs. King. But she was upstaged by her co-star George Clooney, and so Francine faded into a relative obscurity while Clooney rode the wave of rich success, thus brewing a grudge that would fester for years.
My dream is to destroy George Clooney.
Francine and Stan. Perhaps because of her failed acting career, Francine turned to the medicine of love to feel some kind of pleasure, taking on a crazy amount of lovers and planting a rosebush for each and every one.
This is the largest sex garden in North America.
She was also briefly engaged to a man called Travis, who she believed to be killed in a plane crash. So I guess you could say up until this point, her life had more ups and dangerous downs than a supersonic yo-yo. And it was just gonna keep getting darker too. She also joined a fight club, and no one talks about a fight club, and even spent time in the slammer, where she had a particularly rough time. This is because she had become a prolific shoplifter, a trend she'd continue into her life.
Just a lot of things I've stolen over the years. Successfully.
Once free, Francine chose to dedicate her life to being a groupie, traveling the country with a number of bands, and using any means necessary to get backstage and spend some time with them. It was on one of these cross-country trips that Francine, whilst hitchhiking, first encountered our man Stan. After showing quote-unquote mercy to a raccoon he accidentally ran over by putting it out of its misery, Stan became something else in Francine's eyes.
She said it was the most compassionate act she'd ever witnessed, and I got to kill something.
And so the two began a romance that quickly escalated into a proposal. One final night out with Kelly Wilk before the wedding saw a nervous Franny enjoy one final hookup with a man she met at a club. After all that, Francine and Stan were married, with Francine giving birth to their daughter Hayley while on vacation in Africa. Francine kept the secret of this final hookup from Stan, and so suggesting that Hayley isn't his biological daughter. And later on, she was soon joined by her little brother Steve. The family continued to expand, with Roger the alien being granted a room in the Smith household after saving Stan's life in Area 51.
How can I ever repay you?
You got TiVo?
Francine and Roger would develop a close friendship, with Francine ultimately coddling him even more than she did with her very own children.
Leave him alone, honey. He's an artist.
Now, with a happy, good old American nuclear family all under one roof, Francine settled into a fairly routine life as a stay-at-home wife and mother, while Stan continued to work for the CIA. But that wouldn't stop her from pursuing her own passions, such as stand-up comedy, but Stan was fearful that she'd leave him behind, and so paid a therapist to help repress these ambitions. Francine the Mother. Although Francine loved her adoptive family, she also wished to learn more about her biological one. So she tracked her father down, who invited her to a family reunion, and it turns out that her mother had died and her extended family are a rather odd bunch too. Honestly, I think Franny really dodged a bullet here by not being raised in this dysfunctional family, because during the party, her father announces a battle royale to death, the winner of which gets put on an exclusive phone plan.
A battle to the death!
And let me tell you, this was an absolute bloodbath, with Franny outliving everyone else. This messed up event only made her appreciate the Lings, and throughout the show, she has remained very close to them. She also made peace with Gwen after years of guilt, even if it did end up with Gwen going to prison by the end of the episode after Fran once again burnt down a school. Francine even used her time with the Lings as the basis for a television series, which was cancelled almost immediately. Francine has maintained a good relationship with her own family. She dotes over Steve and maintains a strong, if somewhat exhausted, relationship with Hayley, and her close bond with Roger has only developed over time, often playing into his games and personas.
You're just slightly better at this than I expected.
Although primarily a homemaker, Francine has had her fair share of jobs. She's opened a muffin shop, became a surgeon, a stewardess, a journalist, and a television writer, to name a few. This gal likes to keep busy. Francine's Fate. American Dad has featured plenty of alternate timelines and possible futures over the years, including some that explore how things might play out if Stan and Francine were to break up. In one of these futures, Francine and Stan's divorce led to her marrying Steve's friend Toshi. In another, Francine's weekend of impersonating Sarah Blanche led to her fully assume her life, and she became a major success in the business world, at the cost of leaving her family behind. Luckily, she was able to return to the past and prevent this timeline from ever happening. In another possible future, Francine's commitment to staying beautiful eventually led to a series of surgeries that increasingly transformed her into a dark form.
She's had a little work done, but you can't really tell.
Until humanity was overthrown by an ape uprising. In the future, where the Rapture ended the world as we know it, Francine left Stan behind and began a relationship with the resurrected Jesus Christ. Yeah, American Dad can get very weird. She ended up playing a big part in the final days of the war between the forces of good and the Antichrist, and had just the right amount of time to make peace with Stan shortly before his death. Perhaps the most tragic timeline was the one where the family was exposed to the corrupting influence of the Golden Turd. Created by Roger in the show's first season, the storyline would play out over the course of the series, trading hands and corrupting people around the world. Eventually, the turd ended up in the hands of major religious leaders, setting up the stone to be inserted within Roger. And you never guess what, the Smiths were also exposed to the golden turd, and they were quickly overwhelmed by its corrupting influence. Stan went into hiding for years until the family hunted him down. Francine came close to claiming the golden turd, murdering Hayley and Stan, but died in the attempt. And luckily, Roger was able to save the family by impacting the past. And perhaps the sweetest ending for Francine Smith only comes with her and Stan embracing a long life together. In one episode, Francine reveals to Stan that her wish is for them to be buried together when they eventually die, holding hands for all of eternity. A romantic notion, but Stan has other plans, like becoming an awesome cyborg and living forever. But when a future version of Cyborg Stan arrives on the scene, he comes to realize that a life without his Franny is no life at all. And so, at the end of the episode, we flash forward to find the pair buried together. It does make sense that Francine's happiest ending would come with the one timeline where her and Stan actually got the chance to stay together. Dark, but sweet, I guess. Throughout her fairly chaotic life, Francine's bedrock would prove to be Stan again and again, regardless of the troubles in their marriage. It's a nice sentiment and one of the biggest constants in a series that can go on lots of unexpected and absurd flights of fancy. And so that comes to the end of the video. Let me know whose timeline you'd like me to look at next on the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.